Circus. What a fun idea. This is what we thought when we saw the flyer for a traveling circus that was in town for the week. There had been rumors of people disappearing while the circus was around, but surely that was a coincidence. As we approached the tent, everything seemed normal. Clowns were walking around making jokes, tigers could be heard in the distance behind the tent, and carnival songs could be heard all around. As we retrieved our tickets and snacks, we headed inside to take our seats in the front row. The performances were amazing. As the tightrope walkers began to walk across the ropes, I noticed a large hooded figure looming in the top of the tent. It almost looked as if the arms were moving in sync with the performers. As I focused more on this figure, I noticed a skull-like face in the black hood of the robes, and the arms were definitely moving perfectly in sync with the tightrope walkers. It was as if there was a thin string attached to the performers, like they were puppets. As I squinted, the face jolted to stare back at me as the hollow eyes began to glow bright white. This light drew me in, and I became the newest puppet for the circus. Halloween. The one night of the year that old Lady Cooper had people driving for miles to see her house and garden, decorated with fantastical ghouls, spiders, skeletons, and pumpkins. For years, old Lady Cooper had welcomed people from far and wide, and only asked for donations to the local homeless shelter. Whatever you could afford, with no judgment. Old Lady Cooper offered a service of spells for those that requested it. She would only perform these spells on Halloween, however, as she said her powers were at their peak. Mrs. Grayson had traveled 80 miles to visit old Lady Cooper, as she was desperate to have a spell cast to aid her failing business, her brainchild and love that had lost customers and revenue. Old Lady Cooper proffered her hand with a wave, indicating where Mrs. Grayson should sit. The candles flickered gently, and the wails of the ghouls trailed their sounds through every so often. Old Lady Cooper made one request. If I perform this spell, you will see your request fulfilled fully, but you will lose one thing of great importance in exactly 1 year's time. Are you prepared to agree to this? Yes, definitely yes, please, I agree, whispered a desperate Mrs. Grayson. The spell was cast, and old Lady Cooper invited her next visitor in. The house and garden saw an increase in footfall this year, and many spells were cast. Children loved the seemingly endless plastic pumpkins full of sweets and chocolate. They never appeared empty, and supplied each little grabbing hand with a bounty of goodies. As the last visitor trailed off her property, old Lady Cooper had the task of taking down the decorations. They couldn't stay up past midnight or in full daylight, as the neighborhood might become suspicious. Old Lady Cooper may appear to be frail in stature, but she had an incredible strength when it came to taking the life-size ghouls down. The ghouls were still making their deathly moans, but would soon be tucked into the large mahogany chests in the basement, where the moaning would surely cease within hours, as they took their last agonal breaths. The skeletons were carefully carried to the large oak coffins. The local homeless shelter was so grateful for the weekly batches of old Lady Cooper's special stew. When asked what was in the stew, old Lady Cooper would reply, "Meat so tender and fine that tastes perfect with blood-red wine." The skeletons left over from the stew harvest would fulfill their promised agreement for the next Halloween festivities and invite more pleading people to have a spell cast. I honestly don't even know how to begin to describe this, but here it goes. I recently purchased an antique mirror at a local auction. It is an exceptionally beautiful piece with gold filigree details on the frame. I was so excited to update my bathroom with it and promptly placed it on the wall after getting it back home. The first few weeks were uneventful, but things have started getting really weird. The other morning, as I was preparing for work, I was doing my normal morning routine, on which a big part is trying to tame my naturally very curly and unruly hair into a presentable hairstyle to face the public. As I was brushing through the absolute mess my hair decided to turn into, I noticed my reflection just wasn't quite right. It was as though my movements were a few seconds delayed, my eyes a little more annoyed than I myself even felt, and my mouth frowning while I was, well, just focusing and not really upset or even mad. Maybe my morning face is just angrier than I remember, though. This I normally would just write off, but then tonight, as I was getting ready for bed, I swear I saw my reflection smiling at me while I was looking down at my necklace I had just set on the counter. I'm now lying in my bed, but as I'm typing this, I keep hearing what I can only describe as someone drumming their nails on a glass pane coming from my bathroom. And scratching. Crackling almost. Something's wrong with my reflection, and I have a sinking feeling this is the last time anyone is going to hear from me. So, if you're reading this, don't stare too long at your reflection. It doesn't like it.